Hello and welcome to a new How to Play series. Again, it's Stellaris, just as I promised or threatened or whatever. If you are an entirely new player or have not watched the previous series on the basics, please consider doing it right now. This series here will repeat a few of the basic mechanics, but is more focused on slightly more advanced topics like diplomacy, trading, piracy, and the whole jazz. I am using the version 3.84 Gemini. If you know Paradox, especially developing Stellaris, if you're watching this 3 weeks after I've posted this video, they're probably obsolete already. At least if your game version differs significantly from mine, there might be already significant changes. Let's hope you're in that small, tiny window of time in which my videos apply. I'm going to talk about a few things in this video before we get to start the whole thing. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the DLCs that I'm using. I did this already in the previous series, but this should be a bit of a standalone thing, so I will just repeat briefly which DLCs do roughly what. If you haven't bought the game yet or you're considering buying the game, that should help you find out which DLCs you might want to have, because if you want to buy them all, it's expensive. This is grand total. This can be a very expensive game, but it doesn't have to be. Then I'm going to talk you through the race and what I intend to do with this specific build. Lastly, I will just briefly go through the game settings for this game. Gonna be relatively standard game settings though. If you don't want to go through the DLCs again, just jump ahead to the timestamp where we talk about the species. The DLCs can be grouped basically in 3 categories. You've got the main DLCs like Utopia, you have something that is called story packs, and you have specie packs. The main DLCs more or less affect any game you play, regardless on species or playstyle, more or less. The story packs are a little bit more specialized, aiming at specific aspects of the game, but still could affect a wide variety of species and playstyles, while the specie packs, they're mostly for one species, mostly for one of a few playstyles. So which DLCs are important? Which do you need to have? Well, first of all, you can play the game without DLC at all. That is absolutely valid. If you wanted to buy a single DLC, want to start with one, then there is basically no controversy about which one to pick. It's Utopia. Utopia brings so much stuff. Pretty much any game you playing will be affected, will benefit from you buying Utopia. Beyond that, it is not super clear anymore, or there is no consensus on which DLCs you should buy. I will give you my 5 cents, what I think are good DLCs, or DLCs that will get you most out of your bucks. One of my favorite DLCs is the Federations DLC. The reason for this is if you want to play with friends, then you either want to play against each other or you want to play together in a group, in team. And there are only two main ways to do this. One is the new co-op feature, but then you have to play it as the same species, the same faction, or you can team up in a federation. And if you want to do this, the Federation DLC is going to give you so much more stuff you can do in a federation, how to customize your type of federation, and so on and so forth. If you know you're going to play by yourself, then it's not such a great purchase. It's still good if you want to play in not just destroying all enemies, conquering all enemies, but potentially playing a bit of a cooperative thing, and it's still good, but I think it shines the most if you play together with friends. Other than this, there are not so many must-buys, I'd say. I like Galactic Paragons. It's a bit specialized. It upgrades your leaders to be a bit more unique, to have a bit more variety and like interaction with your leaders. You never get to the level of depth or customization as you would in Crusader Kings, for instance. Is still neat, and it affects every single game you would play. So it's still kind of a good value for cost, I'd say. The other two things that I'd like to point out are the first Contact story pack, which is rated really low on Steam. I think it's either mostly negative or mostly positive. The first Contact part of this story pack, I think, is relatively boring. I agree there with the rating, but you'll get the cloaking technology. So if that's something you want to go for, if you want to play like Romulans, for instance, that would be interesting. Other than that, it's not. I don't appreciate it very much. The other one that is slightly misleading is Nemesis. There is a bunch of stuff for Endgame Crisis, which I don't know really, but it upgrades. You get lots of stuff about espionage. That is really interesting. The new espionage mechanics are pretty cool. So those are, again, slightly niche. If you're interested in stealth and or espionage, then those two might be relevant. Similarly niche, I'd say Overlord. If you're already going for Federation, then Overlord might be interesting because it allows you to expand your empire by vassalization really nicely with neat mechanics. But again, these are really already pretty niche, I say. The bigger DLCs that I really don't care for are Apocalypse. Is alright. Is alright. I don't think it's a really a big must buy. Same goes for Distant Stars. It's mostly late game content, late mid game contact. Not a huge fan. And the other one, of course, is the Ancient Relics, which can be fun, but it's a very specific play style. Not every game will benefit from them, since already we're at the story packs. So those were the big DLCs and story packs. About the species DLCs, I would recommend not buying any of them for your first game at all. Like I'd say if you want to purchase anything beyond the core game, buy Utopia, and if you really want to play with friends, Federation, but that's about it. Other than that, I would recommend playing the game first and then checking out what you really are interested in, what you might want to try out. just to be complete here, just to cover all the bases, the species packs that definitely bring the most for their price are Synthetic Dawn, including Machine Empires in very different playstyles. You can be a really nice, friendly Machine Empire taking care of their pet humans. You can play as the Borgs and try to assimilate the entire universe and anything in between. That's really, really good. The other one is Megacorps. It's entire new government type that strongly affects the way you play. Also, the market stuff is included. So those two are definitely the strong ones. The strongest ones. There are others that are they're also pretty good. I really like, I'm using very often stuff from the Necroids species pack. It's just it's just preference. There are things you can use even if you don't play as a Necroid species. Same goes with the strong ones in general are Plantoids, Necroids, Lithoids, playing as sentient rocks, also pretty cool. There's also a whole bunch of stuff in there. And I think that's pretty much it from the really... Toxoids also. There's a lot of stuff in that content. Not so strong, okay-ish, but not so much content, especially if you don't play as this specific species. Plantoids, humanoids, and I think that's pretty... aquatics also. They're also... rather on the mass side, I'd say. As you can see, I've spent way too much money on this game, but anyway. So I tried pretty much everything out, more or less. But it's, as I said, mostly preference. Utopia is considered to be the DLC you want to buy, playing together with friends, federations, and everything beyond that really depends on what you want to do. So start a game, even a total vanilla one, and see if you first of all enjoy it, and second, in which direction you might want to go for later games. All right, so far so good. Let's talk about what we want to do in this playthrough and which species we are going to build for that. The last series was all about assimilating the entire universe. We were extremely aggressive, extremely warmongery. This time I want to be nice and fluffy. Well, probably not fluffy, rather scaly. But I want lots of friends, and I want to trade with them, and I want everyone to be happy. Obviously that goes in entire different direction. However, unlike the previous game series, we will have a backup plan. When you create a species, if you already slightly proficient in the game, you realize very swiftly if you build a one-trick pony, it is very likely to fail. If, for instance, in our playthrough as the Bark Collective, we would not have encountered early on species that we could have assimilated, we would have failed utterly. There would have no recovery from this. So here we are going to build a species that thrives on trade and commerce, but also has a little bit of a backup plan if people don't want to trade with us, if people are particularly aggressive towards us. So let's check out our species then. So as our trading species, I decided to go with little golden dragons. They're dragons and I want to trade with you. They're so cute. I'm sorry. I mean, so they're the Draconic Order of Wealth, or DOW for short. I went for a mega corporation. If you do not have the megacorp DLC, that doesn't hinder you from doing more or less the same. The only thing that you cannot get is the Gospel of the Masses, which is a Megacorp specific thing. Naval Contractors is part of the, is it Nemesis or is it Apocalypse? It is Nemesis. Sorry, Apocalypse. The both are not required. Like, this is our plan A. We want to make a lot of money, and our secret ace up the sleeve is we will make money from spiritualist population that follow the spiritualist ethics. We will get money from all spiritualists population on our worlds, but also from worlds of other species where we created a branch office. This is something unique to mega corporations. So basically we are going to try to spread the spiritualist ethics throughout the galaxy. We want everyone to be religious, not necessarily following our religion, but any religion. This is quite interesting because in most of my playthroughs I basically don't care about ethic attraction, some mechanic in the game that should help you to keep your people aligned with your government, which most of the time you don't care. But in this case, it makes us money. So that's really interesting and helps us highlighting this whole mechanic. Our plan B will be making money from war. We are going to be militaristic, gives us a little bit on ship fire rate and makes it cheaper to claim stuff. We will need influence like crazy with this species. The other thing is naval contractors allows us to have mercenary enclaves. Again, this is a this is part of the Apocalypse DLC. Basically, we will be able to build up a huge fleet and then make it independent. That they will create a new faction without any planets, just a starbase and a bunch of ships, which others and we ourselves too can hire to attack enemies. We will get regularly pay from our mercenaries, from the enclave that we created, as long as we keep the starbase within our territory. So we basically will have a huge fleet on standby. Yes, we have to pay for them, but they're not very expensive. And while we're not using them, they're not only don't cost us upkeep, on the contrary, they actually make money for us. That is absolutely great. So we don't need a huge fleet. We just need whatever we have, some leftover money and alloys. We'll just hand it over to our mercenaries to keep it on standby, basically. So yeah, that should explain why we are militarists and why we are spiritualists. Both are required for these two civics. And last but not least, I used Xenophile, which is kind of a must-have thingy if you want to go for trade value, because it just gives you a bunch of bonus on trade value. Also, additional envoys. And if you remember things from the last series, envoys are very, very, very useful in the current state of the game. So that's basically our government already. I should probably have started with the origin, but I think in this case it makes sense to go from here, because now we know where we stand, and then it becomes easy to understand why we picked this origin. It is, of course, the common ground. So we start the game as leaders of a federation, a non-hegemony federation. This is, of course, part of the Federation DLC. Meaning we already know two other species that very likely will like us. They probably are going to be well aligned with our ethics. And we are the leader of the Federation. Doesn't really matter too much. the big thing here is we will be able to start off with 2 trade agreements, with trade pacts with them, which will increase our income, of course, our trade value. That is really good. And we'll also be able to build branch offices in their on their home worlds, which hopefully will make us money with our gospel of the masses, hopefully. Yeah, last but not least, let's check the trades, but they're also very obvious. I use as a negative the non-adaptive. You can argue with this. The other things could be picked here. Intelligent, because I think it's just very powerful, and thrifty because we are going for trade value, right? All right, this is pretty much everything we really need. I'm just going to show homeworld, species name, and the other things, so you can stop the video there and look at it if you really care. But doesn't really affect our game. If you wanted to play along, but you don't want to buy all the DLCs for this species, you would need the Megacorp and the Apocalypse DLC. Megacorp might be interesting anyways, but Apocalypse is a little bit on the special interest side, I'd say. You can play along with a vanilla race that I made here just to show you what it would look like. The main point here is Fanatic Xenophile, because it gives you the highest bonus on trade value and on envoys. I kept the militarist. I ditched the spiritual since we are not going to have the fun gospel of the masses civic. As for civics, I had to take oligarchic or democratic. Chose oligarchic in order to have the meritocracy, which is not really giving us trade value per se, but it's specialist pop resource output, which is close enough. There is nothing in the civics, as far as I'm aware, that really helps us with trade value. I picked the Distinguished Admiralty in order to give us a bit of our fleet a bit more oomph. Not only have we another 10% ship fire rate, but also we get admirals that start at level 3, generals as well, which is really good. Like, admirals are strong. They give a decent bonus to your fleets. As for the species itself, well, I threw out the low adaptability, since we're not required to build tall, given that we're not a megacorp anymore, so we can settle on more planets with this species. Instead, I used sedentary, which I think is kind of a throwaway disadvantage. It's really barely ever an issue. And deviant, since governing ethics are not really relevant for us anymore. The positive perks, I picked the same, thrifty and intelligent. The dragons, they are still available. They are vanilla these days. That's really nice. So that's pretty much it. The only thing where I cannot do much is when it comes to origins. The vanilla game only has 3 origins. None of them really help us with our play style here. I'd say of the 3, Prosperous Unification is probably the strongest. You start up with additional pops, which will give you a decent boost at the beginning. 2 additional districts is nice, right? The Galactic Doorstep is a bit of a waste. It takes ages until you can even use it, and when you can use it, you can build these things anyway. So this, I really think it's very, very weak. Lost Colony, I would suggest, if you've never played it, use it. It's a fun little storyline. I don't think it's really a great origin. It's not a great advantage over the other origins. So if I had the choice between all of the origins, I would probably never use Lost Colony. But it's the only one of the three that has like a storyline going on there. So that is if you want to play along vanilla style. If you have megacorps, of course, create a megacore. And for those who want to play like an easier game, play along with the basic series I made, but you don't want to buy all the stuff. Thing is, you see, hive minds are only available if you have Utopia. So, but I said that is the kind of must-have DLC. But if you bought Utopia, you can play along as a hive mind, and then I would suggest a devouring hive mind. It does not strike one as an easy game, but it is because you skip on so many mechanics and you just focus on expansion and war, and you are a little bit more robust than the driven assimilators, since you're not required to find an easy target early on. It just helps a bit, but you can just spread out as usual because you get a neat bonus on your pop growth. So that's it if you want to play along but don't want to buy all the DLCs that would be required to create the same species. One more important thing about our species before I forget about it. Our previous playthrough was a species that went wide, as in spreading out wide. The reason for this was our population growth was rather limited, but we got a whole bunch of bonuses whenever we assimilated other creatures. So of course we tried to spread as much as possible. This time we are going to build tall, trying with as few holdings as possible to get the most out of it. Reason for this is corporations get a penalty for the number of planets on the empire size, while we get a decent bonus on our commercial pacts, on our trade goods. So we will try to keep not more than probably 3 planets, while still trying to get a really, really good economy going. This is completely different than our previous playthrough. Am I going to make adjustments to the game setup to make it easier for me to build tall? No. No. I could. There are things that help out with that, but I don't wanna really. The only things that I'm going to adjust. We can actually reset to default. So this time I'm not going for Iron Man mode because we are going to jump forward in time, and I might have more than one save game just for the sake of being a bit more flexible here. I probably reduced the advanced AI AIs a little bit. They can have a massive impact on the game. I recommend for the first game maybe to disable them entirely. If you have an hostile advanced AI close to you, you will have a really rough start. You can have actually very benevolent advanced AIs. Weird things happen then. This can help you out, especially if you have a slow early game, but I would not bet my money on it. So if you don't want a strong random factor when it comes to difficulty, just turn this off and or like turn them down to 1. Not going to change anything about this. I will do a difficulty scaling, which means that the AI is going to start on a very moderate difficulty early on, and then amp up during the mid game to captain tier, just to make it a little bit more interesting. Otherwise, nothing about what I'm going to show you will change significantly, but it seems maybe a little bit more realistic if we're able to hold our ground against slightly stronger AIs. Other than that, I'll keep it to the basics. Yeah, I don't most of the things, especially the ones from the DLCs, Alligates, Carabiniers, they are really that problematic. So you can keep them, you can leave them out. I would suggest, if you play the game and want to change something that will definitely have a solid impact on how you play, check out different galaxy shapes. There are shapes that basically make sure that you have a huge area with only 2 exit systems, so you can easily bolster up your defenses before you meet your 2 neighbors. There are smaller or like more compact kind of maps. So this is probably, the galaxy shape is a very big dial to play around with. Other than that, yeah, the advanced AI, I'd say, is a big one. And I also don't like marauders. I would use them to 1. Just I don't like them. It doesn't really they don't really matter that much, frankly. Anyhow, yeah, that's it. I think with this we can start the game. And next episode I will show you our initial settings to get everything started, and then we will fast forward a little bit. Yeah, you don't the basic playthrough, the basic series that I did. We did this really real time, basically. You saw everything I did. Here I will skip forward every now and then, so that it's a little bit more streamlined, a bit more tight. I just want to check out briefly how, yeah, the galaxy looks like. Our 2 neighbors, the 2 members of our federation. The Quadranian Foundation, Evangelist Zealots, they are authoritarian, xenophile, and spiritualist. Okay, so we are militarists, they are authoritarian. My goodness, I stumbled over that quite a bit. And peaceful traders, xenophile, fanatic spiritualists. Okay, so we will get along with those 2 guys. Great. There is nothing. Yeah, and I think this will be represented in our cohesion here, number of members, diverse ethics is really, this is a minor penalty here. So that's good. Right now it's a galactic accord. I think I might be able to change that eventually, which I mean, I of course I want a trade as a trade union or whatever it's called. There might be an option at some point to swap that out. I will look into that. If I had read my origin, I would know that. Anyway, so this is pretty much our setup. We lost our 2 guaranteed hospital worlds. They are now the home worlds of our allies, but it doesn't matter. We don't want too many worlds anyways. We'll see if we can find 2 that are good, generally good, to settle on. We don't want any okay worlds, because, yeah, as I said, 3 worlds is going to be our grand total eventually. All right, so that is it for the first episode. I hope this spiked your curiosity, and I can see you again in the next episode. Until then, have a good day. Bye bye.